August 20th, 2024. Well, that was quite a speech that Biden did. I mean, full of lies as always, full of distortion, full of anger, and total misdirection. Kind of nauseating, but at any rate, I did listen through it, and so anyhow, we'll have to see where we go from here on the election and all that. But I do think that that we have to be in this campaign here. So, by the way, if you like these videos, please give me a like. It helps the algorithm. You can subscribe, and of course, I also post these on Rumble as well. So whichever would be the best for you, the other information's in the description below. So that now we can get on to the situation. I'm recording this after listening to Joe Biden's last demagogic speech, probably of his political career, unless he does some stump speeches for Kamala Harris on the campaign. And of course, what I think you need to get to, and what I have been, in fact, was the original motivation of all these videos back before the 2020 election, was to raise the alarm of not what they keep talking about, the threat to democracy. Well, actually, they are the threat to at least our system of democracy or representative government that we've had. And the thing that I want to bring out is that they have found, as I called it back then, and still do, the fracture point in our system. The one thing that has actually kept the country in balance for so many years was the Senate filibuster rule, which basically required a supermajority to pass legislation. The kind of legislation will put you in prison, for instance, that kind of legislation. Over the years, there is a thing called reconciliation, where you can pass with a simple majority vote spending bills and under certain selected rules and so forth. But the things that are really important legislation, the legislation that could add new states, the legislation that could legalize large numbers of immigrants, including illegally entering immigrants, the kind of legislation that could set the number of members of the Supreme Court, and the kind of legislation that, for instance, might even ban voter ID on a nationwide basis. That sort of legislation. And the fact that we have the filibuster still requiring 60 votes means that, for instance, the greatest fear that the Democrats raise, that somehow if the Republicans win the election by any reasonable proportion that might really happen, that we would somehow ban abortion nationwide, where it's completely impossible. Even if Trump hadn't promised not to do it, for instance, they couldn't. Because, first of all, 100% of the Republican senators wouldn't do for that. You'd think that Murkowski or Collins would vote for that, for example. I don't know anybody. I don't even know if several others wouldn't. So no, that's not even. Yet they raise this in this most demagogic way as a threat. But the filibuster would prevent that. On the other hand, the filibuster prevents something like Kamala Harris's gun confiscation scheme that she's talked about, because he probably would not get 60 votes for something like that. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about, and that's the kind of thing that's at stake here. Because let's face it, the only reason why it didn't happen in the first Congress after Biden was elected was that two senators, Sinema and Manchin, refused to go along with it. Everybody else did. And not only that, they're going to be gone. In fact, they left the Democrat Party already. They're independents now. But they'll be gone by the next Congress. And if they're replaced with Democrats, hypothetically, they will almost certainly join the other 48, and they will be for ending the filibuster. And then they'll be prepared to do all the things that I've been talking about, such as banning voter ID nationwide, mail-out ballots nationwide, rigged elections nationwide, legalizing all these millions of illegal immigrants they brought in and making them citizens. Already they're allowing them to vote because of the weak laws we have on the subject. So this is an issue that I think kind of contradicts the speech you might have heard if you watched the Democrat convention and avoided throwing up or something, because it's all a pack of lies, almost completely a pack of lies. And so that's why it's most important that everybody get in gear here and support the Republican candidate, Donald Trump. Whether you love him or hate him, you should support him because he stands in the way of something that is very bad that they want to do. Let's face this, Kamala Harris, for instance, her father is a Marxist professor. Now, a lot of people are throwing around the term communist very loosely. In reality, the technical term, I believe, is neo-Marxist. I don't think they're really belief in Stalinism, okay, or Maoism. I don't think they're that far out. And maybe I'm naive. But I do think that they want the government to run your life in ways that are very limiting, let's say. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, we know that, for instance, they want to control what kind of gun you have. They want to control what kind of car you drive. They want to control whether you have paper straws or plastic straws. I mean, and who knows how far it will go. Now they're talking about setting prices for food and other items. She's even talked about taking away patents from drug companies. I mean, why would they do drug research anymore if they're not going to be able to patent and make money off of it? I mean, this is a kind of insanity. So then we'd have only government-funded research. Is that what we're talking about? Well, so at any rate, that's the kind of situation that we'd be facing if these people manage to win the Congress, both houses, and put her in as president. And I think that although her aides are saying that she's no longer for all the radical positions she took in their 2019-2020 period campaign, I think she dropped out before 20 because she was going nowhere, even in the crazy Democrat Party at the time. But that's the situation. That I think we can ignore that. In fact, that is where her inclinations are, and we already saw in her choice of a vice presidential running mate that she went far to the left and rejected a very strong person who was still a pretty radical Democrat, but a more moderate one from Pennsylvania in a key state that may well decide the election, depending on how certain other things break out. So I think we understand that her inclinations are toward a very socialistic form of government, a very intrusive form of government. And if they manage to do such things as destroy the safeguards in the system by packing the Supreme Court with at least 4 more full-scale leftists that they'll ram through with the most narrow vote possible, And remember, the only reason why the Republicans got theirs in is because the Democrats started this process of limiting the filibuster for appointments because they weren't getting a few people through. And then they end up getting a Supreme Court they didn't want because the Republicans, after seeing the entire judiciary, except for the Supreme Court being packed, they decided, well, they might as well do something on the Supreme Court too to counterbalance. And that's the problem. Also, they should consider that some of the things they don't want, if they're gamble that they will always run the government. What if things get so bad that people do rebel and vote them out? So the warning you Democrats, you may get some stuff you really don't want then if there's nothing like these safeguards to protect you. I mean, as we have an ever-growing Supreme Court, I guess, to 13, to 19, what would it be? It'd be unwieldy and unmanageable. But that's the kind of thing, the world that they are trying to put on us here. And that's why it's important, if you have the money, I do recommend that you give to the Trump campaign, which I think is tooled with the RNC, and of course the National Republican Senate and National Republican Congressional Committees or things. I highly recommend you don't give them a cell phone number because you will get all kind of text. Landline numbers, if you have them, all you get is a bunch of calls that you can ignore, but the texts fill up your phone. You have to spend your time deleting them all the time. But at any rate, whatever. But that other than that, and I would love to tell them quit sending all the snail mail, please. I give all my contributions online. If you do it by check through the mail or credit card through the mail, okay, that's good. then you don't want to tell them not to send snail mail. But at any rate, we need to get in this campaign and do whatever we can. What I'm doing is like these videos and some modest contributions based on my level of net worth, I guess. I think I'm doing proportionate to that level. I mean, I don't think anybody's giving up everything they got on this, but there's legal limits, but I'm nowhere going to get never close to that on anything or even within a hair of it. So the point is that I do encourage that, and of course vote by all means. And Bongino says, well, if you have a big social network where you might get people out to vote or motivate the unmotivated to vote, do it. I don't personally have that kind of a social network. I can't think of 10 people I could bring to the polls personally, but at any rate, other than the people here on the that view my videos. So, but at any rate, we got to be in this to save the country from these crazies. The question is, I don't know. A profound defeat might change things. I mean, I think that Ronald Reagan's victory really pushed him back for a full 20 years, I would say, in a meaningful way. Maybe, 25 years, something like that. Really, it was from Reagan to Obama, basically. And even Obama probably wouldn't have won if it hadn't been for the economic crisis of 2008 that occurred right before the election within 6 weeks and changed everything. So, anyway, so that's my thoughts on this, and good luck. And as always, of course, I will post these on on YouTube and Rumble, and the addresses, my social media accounts, are in the description below. All for now.